People always ask me why I took the job. Night guard at a seed vault in the North Pole sounds like a solitary paradise for someone with my quiet habits, right? No traffic, no neighbors, just endless snow and silence. But there's more to it than that. They call it the Doomsday Vault, officially the Svalbard Global Seed Vault, a bunker built into the permafrost designed to outlive war, famine, even the apocalypse. Every nation on Earth sends samples here, seeds of rice, wheat, corn, even rare flowers, so that if the worst happens, we can start again. A noble idea. That's what I thought too, until I saw the rules. They weren't printed, they weren't emailed, they were handwritten on yellowed parchment, sealed in a black envelope, and slid under my room's door the first night I arrived. The envelope smelled like mold and iron. I thought someone was playing a joke until I read what was inside. Rules for night shift personnel. Do not ignore. 1. At 11 p.m. sharp, lock the entrance gate. You must never let anyone in after this time, no matter how human they sound. 2. At 11:30 p.m., you will hear scratching behind the steel seed vault door. Do not acknowledge it. Do not speak to it. Do not whistle. 3. Midnight roll call. Count all 3 security monitors in the control room. If one is missing, do not look for it. Stay seated. It will return by 12:07 a.m. 4. Between 12:30 a.m. and 1 a.m., there may be footsteps in the west corridor. They belong to something that no longer remembers its shape. Keep your flashlight off. 5. 2 a.m. If you smell wet soil, begin humming. Choose a lullaby you've never heard before. 6. Do not leave the control room between 3 and 4 a.m. Do not open the door, no matter who knocks. 7. If a second envelope appears at 4:44 a.m., you must burn it immediately. Do not read its contents. If it is already open, it is too late. Pray. I stared at those rules for a long time, the handwriting looping in jagged strokes, like someone wrote them during an earthquake. The thing is, I was already inside the vault when I got the letter. This wasn't a hazing prank. This was protocol, and I followed it. Night 1, I locked the outer gate at 11 sharp. The sun had vanished earlier, plunging everything into that eternal winter dusk the North Pole is known for. I patrolled the perimeter, thick boots crunching snow as I moved past massive floodlights and barbed fences. I didn't expect anything out of the ordinary. But at 11:22, I heard it. A scratching sound, like nails or claws, scraping against the inside of the vault's massive steel door. It didn't make sense. That door is sealed with electromagnetic locks, weighed down by 4 tons of concrete and metal. It's the kind of door meant to withstand nuclear warheads, but the sound was unmistakable, deliberate, rhythmic. Scratch, scratch, pause, scratch, scratch. I froze, my breath fogging up the inside of my mask. The cold was brutal, slicing through layers like glass. I didn't whistle. I didn't speak. I did exactly what the rules told me to do. By 11:40, the scratching stopped. I went back to the control room and sat in the metal chair, heart pounding. The monitors glowed, showing empty hallways and temperature sensors ticking in the negatives. Everything looked normal. Then came midnight. I counted the monitors. 1, 2, 3. But the third one, bottom right, was static. A gray fuzz like an old television, humming faintly. I reached to adjust it, hesitated, then sat back. The rule said not to look for it. So I didn't. At 12:07 a.m., the monitor flickered back on. It now showed the northern storage wing, rows of seed shelves, all still. But in the far back of the frame, something was standing there. It didn't move. I blinked. Gone. I chalked it up to fatigue, just nerves. Cold can do weird things to your brain. Came. Footsteps echoed down the west corridor. Click, click, shuffle. The hallway camera showed nothing, just the long tunnel lined with icy pipes and flickering lights. I kept my flashlight off. The steps passed right by the control room. I swear I could feel the vibration in my bones. Whatever was out there wasn't wearing shoes. It dragged one foot, then another. A wet, slapping sound like a mop on tile, and then silence. I exhaled for the first time in what felt like minutes. The smell hit me. Wet soil. I didn't even question it. I opened my mouth and started humming. Some weird melody, unfamiliar but strangely soothing. Maybe my subconscious made it up on the spot. It felt ancient. The air grew warmer just for a moment. The soil smell faded, By 3, I sealed the control room door, sat in silence. My watch ticked louder than it should have. Then came the knocking. 3 knocks, then 5, then scratching. I bit down on my tongue and kept still. By 4, I was exhausted. My hands were shaking, my eyes red. And at 4:44, like clockwork, there it was, a black envelope on the floor. I hadn't heard anyone enter. I hadn't looked away. I hadn't slept. It was just there. I stared at it. My fingers trembled as I picked it up. It was warm, sweating. I reached for the lighter in the emergency drawer and burned it in the small trash incinerator by the wall. The flames hissed, and for a brief second, I heard a high-pitched scream, not with my ears, but inside my skull. By 6 a.m., the lights brightened. My shift was over. I opened the outer gate, letting in the Arctic wind. Fresh snow had covered the landscape. The vault stood behind me, silent and monumental, like a tomb. I told myself it was a hallucination, a stress dream. But when I returned to my room that evening, preparing for night 2, something chilled me deeper than the wind outside. Another black envelope was waiting on my bed, and this one was already open. I didn't touch the open envelope on my bed right away. I stood in the doorway of my bunk room, staring at it like it might leap up and bite me. The paper inside was yellowed like the last one, but this time the ink looked fresher. It glistened slightly, like it had just been written, and it wasn't rules this time. It was a message, scrawled in jagged red ink, not black like before. We remember the first vault, the one buried beneath. Yours is just a door built over a grave. Don't hum tonight? Let us out. I stood there for a long time, fingers going numb even though the room was heated. The words seemed to pulse on the page like breathing flesh. I burned it, of course, just like the rules said, but the damage was done. I had read it. I couldn't unread it. Still, I returned to the control room before 11 p.m. I wasn't about to abandon my post. My contract was explicit, 6-month minimum. Good pay, isolation, and, well, now I knew why they didn't get many applicants. I locked the front gate at exactly 11 p.m. The steel clanged shut, echoing across the tundra. I could see nothing beyond the floodlights, just the flat, empty whiteness of the Arctic night. But something was out there, watching. When I got back inside, I noticed something had changed. The vault door, the huge sealed one leading into the main seed chamber, was frosted over. Thick ice had bloomed across its surface, white crystals expanding in strange, spidery patterns. The temperature sensor said the hallway was 20 degrees Celsius, just like usual, but the door was radiating cold like a black hole. And at 11:30, right on schedule, scratch, scratch, scratch! I clenched my jaw. The scratching was deeper tonight, more forceful, not like nails, like bone. I stood still, back against the control room wall, heart thudding. The rules said not to acknowledge it, so I didn't. It went on longer this time. Nearly 10 full minutes of steady, deliberate clawing. When it stopped, something whispered behind the door, a voice like cracked ice. You're not the first. I didn't move. I barely breathed. And then it was quiet again. At midnight, I counted the monitors, 3, all flickering but accounted for, except the bottom right one was no longer static. It now showed inside the seed chamber. That shouldn't be possible. The chamber is sealed. I don't have access. No one does after hours. But there it was, row after row of icy shelves lined with seed canisters. And in the center aisle, something was moving. At first, it looked like a shadow. Then it unfolded. It had limbs, too many of them. They reached and twisted like tree branches underwater. It slithered between rows, headless and mouthless, dragging a long slick behind it like a wet worm. Then it stopped and looked straight at the camera. I don't know how I know that, but it saw me. The monitor went black. I sat there frozen, hands white-knuckled on the edge of the console, 12:30 a.m. Footsteps again. But this time, they were running, fast, erratic. Whatever it was, it passed by the west corridor, then circled back. I could hear it slamming against the walls, shrieking metal and raking claws. The lights flickered overhead. The camera feed for the west corridor shorted out. Static replaced the image. Then the emergency radio crackled to life. Help me. A voice. Please, let me in. It sounded human, but the gate was locked. No one was supposed to be out there. I checked the front monitor. A man was standing just outside the fence line, pale, shivering. His mouth moved, but there was no breath in the air. That's not possible. Out here, every breath fogs up instantly. That's how you know someone's alive. I leaned closer. His eyes were hollow, not just sunken, absent. He lifted one hand and knocked on the camera. Just like that, the feed cut to black. I backed away. I didn't let him in. At 2 a.m., the smell returned. Wet soil, like something freshly dug. But tonight, I didn't hum. Not because I believed the message in the envelope, but because I was paralyzed with fear. My throat wouldn't make a sound. The temperature in the control room dropped by 5 degrees. The frost crept up the windows, and something tapped the glass from outside. I turned. Nothing was there. Just a long smear of black slime dripping down the window pane as if something had licked it. 3 a.m. to 4 a.m. was a blur. I barricaded the door and waited, flashlight in hand. The walls groaned like the whole mountain was breathing. At 4:44 a.m., another envelope appeared. This time it was tucked under my pillow. That meant something. Someone had been in my room again. I didn't even look at the writing, straight to the incinerator. The flames turned blue when it burned. And this time, something cried in the vault. Like a child, a deep, wet, bubbling sob from behind the steel. When my shift ended at 6 a.m., I left the control room. The ice on the vault door was thicker than ever. The scratching marks were now grooves, like something had started to make progress. The outer gate had fresh handprints on the inside. Not mine. I stood there in the cold for a long while, unsure what was worse, the thought that I was being watched from inside or from the dark, endless ice outside. Before going to sleep, I decided to speak to Lars. He's the only other person here, an old maintenance tech who rarely comes out of his quarters. He listened without saying much. When I told him about the scratching, the thing in the seed chamber, the envelopes, he didn't act surprised. He just nodded, slow and tired. Then he said, "There was a first vault, you know, before this one, buried deeper. They built over it in secret, tried to seal it, but seeds, they grow, even when you don't want them to." I asked what he meant. He just looked at me and said, "Just follow the rules. Don't hum tonight. That message wasn't for you. It was for them." And with that, he went back inside and locked his door. I haven't seen him since. Lars didn't answer his door all day. I knocked 3 times, then 4, then once more with the butt of my flashlight, just to hear another human sound in that concrete mausoleum of a facility. But there was no response. The air outside his quarters smelled faintly of mildew and iron, the same sickly mix I remembered from the envelopes. I should have taken the hint. Instead, I prepared for night 3. Everything was colder that evening, colder than usual. I checked the readouts in the control room, and the internal temperature had dropped by nearly 10 degrees, even though the heating system was running fine. But worse than the cold was the humming. It wasn't coming from me. It started at 10:47 p.m. Soft, lilting notes echoing through the vent shafts. A lullaby. A melody I didn't recognize, but one that stirred something ancient and uneasy in my bones. A woman's voice, high and slow, floating between verses. Under the frost, the roots remain, drinking dark through ice and pain. It was coming from inside the vault, and I wasn't alone. I locked the outer gate at 11 sharp, as usual. That part I never forgot. As soon as the lock clicked into place, the air felt thicker, like the atmosphere changed the moment that gate sealed, a dome of pressure settling over me. At 11:30, right on cue, the scratching at the seed vault door began. But tonight it wasn't just scratching. It was tapping. 4 slow taps. Then silence. 4 more. Like someone knocking in a pattern. Morse code? I couldn't help myself. I leaned in closer to the monitor, trying to decode the rhythm. But just before I could decipher it, something else caught my attention. The camera feeds began to switch on their own. Each monitor blinking, cycling through hallways, storage rooms, maintenance shafts, until one stopped at a feed I'd never seen before. A staircase. Not just any staircase, one that descended deep into the bedrock, lit only by a few swaying bulbs overhead. Stone walls, rusted pipes. I stared at it, confused. There was no sub-level on the maps. The Doomsday vault was supposed to go back, not down. And yet, here it was, a live feed. As I watched, something crawled into frame. It wasn't walking. It didn't have a face. It moved like a man dragging himself by his elbows, body sagging with decay, limbs bent wrong. It stopped at the base of the stairs, then looked up. Not at the camera, through it, straight at me. I shoved back from the console, panting. My skin prickled with static and cold sweat. I blinked, and when I looked again, the monitor was back to normal, showing nothing but the hallway outside the seed chamber. But that image of the staircase, it burned itself into my brain. Midnight. Roll call time. I counted the monitors. 1, 2, where was the third? My eyes darted to the corner. The bottom right screen had gone blank again. Not static this time, just off. The control room lights dimmed. A soft hum started from the walls, low frequency, like a living thing purring beneath the concrete. The silence was worse than sound. Every second that passed made me feel like something was watching me from the floor, from the ceiling, from inside my own bloodstream. At 12:07, the monitor flickered back on, and there was Lars, staring into the camera from inside the seed chamber. But something was wrong with him. His face was bruised, lips cracked and bleeding. His eyes were pitch black, completely devoid of color. He opened his mouth, and a sound came out like rattling chains dragged across ice. He said 3 words, "It's not sealed." Then the screen went dark again. I ran to Lars's room. His door was unlocked now. Inside, the air was freezing. The lights were off. His cot was untouched. But the walls were covered in drawings. Frozen vines curling around skulls. Seeds splitting open to reveal rows of teeth. A woman with long arms like roots and empty holes for eyes. And that same staircase, drawn in charcoal, descending forever. On his desk sat an old journal. It wasn't his handwriting. I flipped through the pages and chills spidered up my spine. It described the first vault. They buried it too deep. Seeds grew in the dark. Roots learned to drink silence. The vault cracked. Something got out. Something that remembers being human. I slammed the book shut. That's when the power flickered. The emergency lights kicked in, blood-red bulbs washing the halls in an eerie glow. I bolted back to the control room, 12:30 a.m. The footsteps returned. But this time, they didn't stop in the west corridor. They came straight toward me. The door handle to the control room jiggled once, twice, then slowly it began to turn. I lunged forward and locked it just in time. The sound on the other side wasn't breathing, it was humming. That same lullaby. Under the frost, the roots remained. A woman's voice close, just inches away. Then silence, and then a single knock. Not from the hallway, but from beneath the floor. 2 a.m. No smell of soil this time, but the lights dimmed again. The humming came back louder, spreading through the vents like a virus. I couldn't stop myself. I hummed along, barely aware I was doing it. And then I saw it. The camera feed for the hallway outside the vault door began to shake. The ice around the seal was melting, and the steel bolts, one of them, twitched. A shudder, as if something behind the door was pushing. I watched, breathless, as the frost peeled away in chunks. I knew then it wasn't a vault, it was a prison. 3 to 4 a.m. I didn't stay in the control room. I did the one thing I swore not to do. I followed the staircase. I found the door in the north wing, behind a false panel in the wall. It wasn't locked, just old, forgotten. When I opened it, a rush of warm, damp air poured out, too warm for the Arctic. I descended, each step slick with condensation. The further I went, the more I smelled it. Wet wood, rotting vegetation, sulfur. The stairs wound down for what felt like miles, until finally I reached the bottom. The stone corridor opened into a vast underground chamber. And at the center was another vault door. Older, crusted with moss, vines growing along its edges. It was open, just a crack. Inside, nothing but darkness. And then from that darkness, a voice whispered, "You hummed. You let us remember." At 44 a.m., I woke up in the control room, no memory of returning, just a black envelope on the console. Already open, and beside it, a single seed, pulsing, like a heartbeat. I should have reported it. The seed, the black envelope, the dreams. But who would I report it to? There's no contact with the outside world during this assignment. The satellite uplinks are restricted. Emergency channels require biometric authorization from 2 staff members, and Lars was gone. The longer I sat staring at that little pulsing thing on the console, the more I realized this job wasn't about protecting the seeds. It was about containing them. And now, one was loose. It didn't look like a seed anymore. The shell had cracked open, and tiny root hairs had begun to push out, twitching like feelers. I couldn't bring myself to touch it, but I also couldn't leave it. Instead, I did what I'd always done. I followed the rules. Or at least, I tried to. But that night, the rules changed. I went to check my quarters before the shift began. I don't know what I was expecting. Maybe another envelope, maybe a sign Lars had come back. But what I found was worse. The mirror above my sink was fogged, like someone had just showered. I hadn't used it in 2 days, and when I wiped it clear, I didn't see my own reflection. I saw Lars, naked, covered in frostbite, standing in the doorway of that underground vault. He raised a finger, pointed at me, and whispered, "You're next." The mirror cracked down the center. I turned and ran. I locked the front gate. The wind was screaming tonight, like something was angry, like the cold itself wanted in. When I got back inside, the vault door was no longer frosted. It was dripping. Condensation rolled down it like sweat. And on the steel surface, someone had traced a word with their finger. Grow. I backed away slowly, hands shaking. 11:30 p.m. The scratching resumed, but it wasn't random this time. It was rhythmic. A pattern. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, like a song being played backwards. I couldn't block it out. I tried humming, but my voice came out warped, like it didn't belong to me. The air grew thick again, wet, heavy, filled with the scent of soil and blood. The monitors flickered. All 4 this time. Wait, 4? There were only 3 before. The 4th monitor hadn't existed until now. It showed a long, red-lit corridor I'd never seen. There were chains hanging from the ceiling, water pooling on the floor, a distant sound of breathing echoed through the speakers, and at the far end of the hallway something stepped into view. It wasn't human. It wasn't even trying to be. Midnight. The rules always said to count the monitors. So I did. 1, 2, 3, 4. I counted again, and one of them, the one showing the stairwell, was zooming in on its own, descending frame by frame until it reached the open door at the bottom, where I'd been, where the second vault stood. Inside, it was no longer empty. Dozens of people stood shoulder to shoulder, silent, unmoving. No eyes, no faces, just bark-smooth skin. Their mouths were sealed shut with roots. They turned as one, and the feed cut out. 12:30 a.m. The humming returned. But this time, I wasn't the only one humming along. I could hear a chorus, male voices, female. Children, dozens, no hundreds, coming from inside the walls. It echoed through the pipes, into the control room, and from deep below the floor. My skin felt too tight on my bones. My veins itched. And when I looked down at the black seat again, it was gone. Only a slick, pulsing hole remained in the desk, as if it had burrowed into the wood. Something was moving beneath it, scraping, growing. I grabbed the emergency incinerator fuel. I didn't care about the rules anymore. I soaked the desk, the floor, the monitors, everything, and struck the match. But the fire didn't catch. The fuel sizzled, boiled, and then froze solid. A voice spoke behind me. "Fire is no longer your tool." I spun. Lars stood in the doorway, or what was left of him. His skin had split open in long vertical cracks like bark. His eyes were swollen with sap. His teeth had become white slivers of wood. He smiled. It creaked. The first vault was a garden, you see, and now the roots remember you. 2 a.m. I don't remember passing out, but I woke up in the hallway outside the seed chamber. My palms were pressed flat against the vault door. The steel was warm now, and I was humming without meaning to. Behind me, something whispered. It wasn't words. It was a sound like thousands of roots threading through rock, like pressure and time and hunger made audible. I turned slowly. There were footprints in the frost-covered floor, leading away from me, and one word etched across the wall: feed. 3 to 4 a.m. I found Lars again. He was down in the secondary chamber, kneeling before the open vault, arms spread like a prophet. Behind him stood the tree, a black rotting thing covered in faces, dozens of them, frozen in expressions of pain and awe. Its branches scraped the ceiling. Its roots pulsed with white fungal veins. From its center, the seed I'd seen pulsed like a heart, and I heard it speak, not aloud, inside me. "You are soil, you are vessel, you are womb." Lars turned to me and smiled, then stepped into the tree. The bark closed over him like lips, and I screamed. I woke in my quarters. The control room was back to normal. The monitors showed nothing but static, but on my chest sat a new envelope, red this time. Inside was one sentence, "Tomorrow you plant." And tucked inside the fold was another seed, this one pulsed harder, like it was excited, like it had recognized me. The red envelope sat on my chest like it had grown there overnight. I didn't open it right away. I just stared at it while my breath fogged in the frigid air of my quarters. Outside, the wind howled like a living thing. Inside, I could feel something crawling behind the walls, underneath the floors. The Doomsday Vault wasn't just alive anymore. It was awake. Eventually, I peeled open the envelope. There was no paper inside this time. No typed instructions, just a strip of old cracked parchment. And in smeared ink, 5 words. "Tonight, the soil takes root." And beneath that, drawn in faded charcoal, was a symbol I hadn't seen before. A seed cracked open, roots spiraling out, not downward, but upward, like tentacles. I checked the mirror again before starting my shift. Still cracked. Still wrong. My reflection didn't blink when I did. Didn't move when I did. Its eyes were dull black, and its mouth moved independently, mouthing something I couldn't hear. I covered the mirror with a towel and left. I didn't want to see it mouth that word again. Feed. Fee-em. The power flickered twice before I even reached the control room. I passed through the hallway near the storage wing, where the emergency rations were kept, and paused. Because the walls were pulsing like veins. Slow and rhythmic, in sync with the heartbeat I'd been feeling since that first seed split open. And from one of the air vents, something slid out. A root. Black, wet, thin as fishing line and moving against gravity, like a snake climbing upward. It vanished into the ceiling and disappeared. I didn't follow it. I didn't have to. I knew it would find me later. I locked the outer gate with shaking hands. The lock was soft, not frozen, like something had warmed it from the inside. The temperature gauge outside read 28 degrees. Inside, it was rising 5 degrees. Then 7 degrees, then 12 degrees. Seeds should be kept dormant in sub-zero temperatures. This wasn't preservation anymore. This was germination. When I reached the control room, I found the cameras already online. All 4 monitors were lit, and a 5th was warming up. The 5th camera feed slowly blinked to life. It showed a room I'd never seen before. Stone walls, wet floor, shelves lined with jars, not seed jars. These were filled with liquid, and floating inside each, human eyes, all staring straight forward, unblinking. I turned to shut the monitor off, but the screen whispered, "Soil sees, soil remembers, soil opens." Then the feed went black. The vault door began to thrum. Not scratch, not knock. It hummed, a low, resonant sound, like metal vibrating under impossible pressure. And on the screen beside it, the frost peeled away completely, revealing a pattern etched into the steel. A face. No eyes, just a mouth, open in a soundless scream. And from the corners of the vault door, green sprouts began to emerge, small at first, then growing rapidly. I watched as vines slithered up the walls of the corridor. Not roots anymore. Limbs. Midnight. The rules always said to count the monitors. Now there were 6, and each one showed a different part of the vault. But something was wrong with the footage. There were people in them, dozens, walking slowly down the halls, faces blurred, skin pale, dressed in guard uniforms, some wearing old Svalbard patches from decades ago, and some wearing nothing but frostbitten skin and the remains of seedlings growing out of their mouths, eyes, and chests. They all stopped at once. They turned to face the cameras, and in perfect unison they mouthed a word I couldn't hear, but I could feel it. In my spine, in my teeth, inside my skull. I ran, not from fear, from instinct, from recognition, because in the background of one of those camera feeds I'd seen my own face, frozen, rooted to a wall, staring blankly ahead, and yet I was here, moving, alive, for now. 12:30 a.m., the control room lights failed completely. I was left in total darkness. The humming had grown louder, now layered with voices underneath it, like a choir humming beneath the earth, rising toward the surface. Then behind me I heard it, a tap on the glass of the observation window. I turned. Something was outside. Not human, not entirely. Its shape was twisted, like a man made of tree bark and exposed muscle, sprouting arms from the chest and knees. No face, just a gaping hole in its head where a seed pulsed, and it mirrored my every move. When I stepped back, it stepped back. When I raised my hand, it did the same. Then it did something I didn't do. It opened its chest. Inside was a writhing tangle of roots wrapped around a human heart, still beating. 2 to 4 a.m. The vault doors are no longer locked. I found the main chamber wide open. Inside, the shelves were empty. Every last container gone. The seeds planted. All of them. The concrete floor was ruptured, cracked and broken, split open like skin, and in each crevice things were growing. Tall, bone-white stalks with human teeth along their edges, bulbs shaped like skulls, vines that pulsed like veins. And at the center of the chamber stood a figure in a white parka. Back turned to me, frozen stiff. Lars. He turned slowly, and I saw that something had grown through him. A black tree limb erupting from his spine, wrapping around his ribcage like armor. He raised one shaking hand and whispered, "You're already one of us. You always were. The vault isn't to protect seeds from man. It's to protect man from the seeds." Then he opened his mouth wide, and a voice that wasn't his poured out, "One night remains, then the harvest begins." 4:44 a.m. I awoke back in my quarters. No memory of leaving the vault chamber. Only a small sprout growing from the palm of my hand, green, warm, alive. The final envelope sat beside my bed. This one was made of bark. No ink. Just words carved into it. Part 6, the last shift. 4:44 a.m. I stared at the sprout growing from the center of my palm. Tiny green leaves, impossibly soft, curling up to the ceiling light. My hand itched like fire. Veins darkened around the base, like roots had taken up residence beneath the skin. I tried to cut it off. Scalpel, box cutter, fire. Nothing worked. Every time I carved it away, it grew back stronger, thicker, darker, until I saw not just leaves sprouting, but eyes forming at the base. Tiny, watching, blinking. I screamed until my throat gave out. By the time I stumbled into the hallway, the vault had changed. It no longer resembled a man-made structure. The steel had turned to something organic. The walls throbbed. Doors had become mouths. Fluorescent lights flickered behind tissue-thin vines, and from the vents oozed thick, amber sap. I passed the old seed room, where rows of shelves had once stood, now rose a grove. Each tree was shaped like a human, limbs stretching in agony, faces pressed into bark. Some still moved, some whispered. One of them had my voice. 10:30 p.m. I returned to the control room. What was left of it? The monitors had fused into a single mass. Wires tangled into nerve-like tendrils, and the screen showed nothing but the inside of my own mind. Memories flashed across it. My first day here. Lars handed me the rule sheet, that first envelope, the seed, the mirror. It paused on one image, me, sleeping, and something black and root-covered leaning over me. The image zoomed in until all I saw was the seed's surface. But in its reflection, 100 tiny versions of myself screamed, clawing to get out. The speaker clicked on. "Rule 0, a voice said. You don't plant the seed plants you." The room tilted. Or maybe I did. My legs gave out. I crawled to the hallway. The floor was soft now, like wet soil. With every step, the plant on my palm grew. By now it had reached my elbow, wrapping around me like a lover. And it whispered. It knew my name. 11 p.m., final shift begins. The vault doors no longer locked. They breathed. Open, shut, open, shut. With each exhale, spores drifted through the air, glittering, beautiful, lethal. Something had grown tall in the central chamber, a tree unlike the rest, wider, blacker, covered in faces of former guards. Some I recognized from old photos, others too ancient to name. They were singing, a deep atonal chant that made my bones rattle. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. The seed in my arm had pierced bone, taken control. And then it bloomed. From the center of the sprout, a flower opened. Red, pulsing, and in its center, a perfect miniature replica of the vault, complete with me inside it, screaming. 12. Time doesn't work right anymore. I blinked and saw seasons change. Snow to rain to ash to nothing. The Doomsday vault crumbled and regrew in infinite loops. I saw Lars walking backward into fire. I saw myself being born in reverse, from bark, from seed, from soil. I saw the earth crack open, not from bombs, not from war, but from roots. Beneath every city, every bunker, every nation, they had already been planted. The final monitor activated. It showed the surface. The sky wasn't black anymore. It was a deep green, swirling, alive. The snow had stopped falling, Instead, petals rained down, and the sun, gone, replaced by a pulsing orb the size of a moon, rained, beating, and growing. A new envelope appeared. This one was inside me. I don't know how, but I felt it. Under the skin of my chest, beating. I tore it free. Inside, not a message, a rootlet, wrapped around a single sentence. You are the last soil. I don't write this from the control room anymore. I'm somewhere deeper, a place not on any map, a place beneath the vault, beneath the earth, beneath thought. Everything is green and black and open. I can hear the others now, every past guard, every failed watchman. They whisper through the roots, their voices part of the hum. Lars is here too. He's part of the tree now. So am I. There are new rules now. I hear them every time the wind rustles through the bark of my ribs. 1. The seed is not asleep. It waits. 2. The vault was not built to protect. It was built to distract. 3. You are soil. You always were. 4. The harvest has begun. 5. The world won't end in fire or ice. 6. It will end in roots. The next shift is arriving soon. They'll come through the snow, confused, tired, cold, alone. They'll take the key, read the rules, settle in, and eventually they'll find the first envelope. They'll open it, and they'll think it's just a seed. But I'll be waiting, we all will, because the vault never needed guards. It needed gardeners. And the world above, it's already been sown. The end.